Under glass, faithless bloom. A greenhouse after hours makes its own weather. When the last stroller squeaks into the parking lot and the volunteers lay down their pruning shears like knives at a truce, the conservatory exhales. Fans switch from gossip to lullaby. Mist whispers on the hour. Heat clings to the panes like a creature you can see only when you don't try. If you've never stood under glass at midnight with a hygrometer humming in your pocket and the orchids lifting their throats to a darkness trained to be kind, you don't know how a room can ask for honesty without moving a hinge. I'm Julian, chief horticulturist at the Reed Botanical. I sign off on the climate that keeps the living alive. Rainforest at 95% humidity, arid house at civilized thirst, temperate at nostalgia. My bench is the polite chaos of small faiths. Felco pruners honed to confession, grafting tape that knows more names for hope than I do. A hand lens so scratched it has learned to soften people. A tray of pollination brushes that look like tiny paintbrushes for secrets. In a drawer, a battered blue tin that once held pastilles and now holds the museum's lost punctuation. A pearl earring back, a clear hair tie, a bobby pin bent into a question mark, a ticket stub with glitter that refuses to die. None of it worth anything. All of it proof that people like to leave pieces of themselves where chlorophyll might remember them. Sophia, my wife then, could make a room bloom without a single petal. Director of events, conductor of donors and chandeliers. She taught gala tables to look like they had stories. When a chiller failed on a July evening and the tropical dome slowed into forgiveness, I rigged shade cloth and movable fog the way you talk a child out of a tree. She watched me coax a rainforest into keeping its temper and later told me I made her thirsty. We married 2 winters later, under the fig that bends itself toward skylight with the stubborn piety of a saint. Staff clapped behind plants that had seen too much to be surprised. We kept Thursdays the way smugglers keep maps, folded and warm. She'd tap the staff door twice. The night guard would pretend not to hear, and I'd cut the overheads to a dusky kindness and cue the misters like applause. If that reads like boasting, I am teaching you my room. There is a notch in my lower back from the stainless rim of the propagation table where she once pressed me until perlite made constellations on my shirt. Somewhere under her left clavicle lives a comma of a birthmark I could find with my mouth even if the exhaust fan sang. She'd say, "Give me 10," meaning minutes, meaning mercy, and I would spend 9 like a prince and hide 1 under my tongue for famine. The first wrongness was not lipstick. It was pollen. Sophia's perfume lives at the mild intersection of citrus and pear, the charitable middle register you can wear next to orchids without being accused of monologuing. That night beneath the fruit, something tart and aristocratic flickered, brugmansia pollen, yellow with petty power. We have no angel's trumpet in bloom. The buds are weeks from opening their fluted sins. On the stone by the bench, a damp ring where a glass had sweated and left a kiss. The security log noted the north door held open for 6 seconds at 00:11 a.m. Just enough for 2 bodies to negotiate who goes first. Camera 3 in the bromeliad tunnel blinked to snow for 18 seconds and came back wide-eyed. On the leaf of a philodendron that does not forgive, a smudge of plum the shape of a mouth practiced at secrecy. I wrote the building a merciful story. A caterer wandered with a curiosity bigger than his job description. A docent, God bless them, tripped a sensor and called it research. A moth carried the pollen in on a dare. The next Thursday returned the times like liturgy. 00:11, the pause. 00:14, the camera sneeze. 00:20, the faint perfume of cedar and mint where this house usually smells of wet stone and green intention. My bench wore a shallow diagonal crease through a stack of potting sheets. No draft could have cut. At home, folding towels, She halves, I thirds. Marriage is geometry with breath. Sophia leaned her hip into our kitchen counter like sailors trust hull and not sea. Open, she said. She didn't touch me while she said it. That is how serious things enter a house, hands visible, voice steady. With rules, she added, as if rules could teach oxygen to behave. Us first. No one from the read. No donors, no vendors. Tell before, not after. Protection always. Our bed is sovereign ground. I wanted to be larger than a greenhouse. We wrote it on the back of a seating chart and signed as if paper supervises heat. We were brave for 2 weeks. The third, at 10:57 p.m., her text read client tasting ran long. Don't wait up, and the dome answered like an accomplice. I do not set traps in sanctuaries. I tune rooms until they cannot lie. I use the tools my trade allows. There is a species of orchid, catasetum, that throws pollen like a dare. I dusted a whisper of fluorescent powder into a single flower's trigger so it would mark a fingertip without malice. On the inside handle of the staff entrance, I brushed a thin film of neem oil cut with UV dye. You can't feel it, but under a lamp your skin remembers. I nudged the missed schedule by 1 minute. A timing no stranger would notice, but my hand knows the rhythm the room prefers. I tucked a paper tag under the edge of the bench, lifted even a breath. It would crease like fog learning a name. I turned the tiny brass screw on the hygrostat a quarter turn to an irrational angle, hurried hand square things as if virtue were geometry. 00. 11 lingered to 7 seconds. The bromeliad tunnel coughed its static and came back repentant. The hygrostat sat perfect as if it had never been loved. The paper tag wore a diagonal wound. Under the UV, constellations woke on the staff door handle. On the underside of a wrist I had kissed 100 times, the ghost of a flower blinked at me like a small, mean star. She arrived camera-ready, hair fast. I raised the lamp and we watched the night write its name on her pulse. "Don't make me the villain," she said, not pleading, just tired of rooms that want knives. "I asked for before," I said. "I thought I did," she said. In her grammar, client tasting counted. She had kept tempo. I demanded melody. He followed with the float of men who think glass is a mirror designed to flatter them. He had a chef's jaw and an influencer's grin, Theo Park, celebrity gardener and sometime donor charm, the kind of man who says soil when he means audience. He smelled like mint gum and the careful laundry of men who let cameras speak for them. He didn't look at me. He looked up into the canopy as if palm fronds might lift their skirts for him. "We'll go," he told the air, respectful as a cat. "We won't perform in here," I said, and held the door because buildings deserve ceremony when asked to carry weight. The latch made its modest consonant. The dome exhaled once and forgave in the way only plants can. We separated with the ruthless kindness of people who can carry breakables. She took the blazer that teaches light to flatter, and the calendar where apology and money share a cot. I kept the chipped mug with the Reed's old logo and my habit of speaking quiet to leaves as if they were animals who might yet learn English. Lawyers moved nouns across a polished table. We signed where names go when they are tired of starring. Work kept my hands from carving altars to grievance. A missed line thought it was a creek, and I taught it boundary. The corpse flower in the back house flirted with a schedule that would bankrupt us. I negotiated with heat and shadow like a priest in a crisis of faith. School groups arrived with their honesty, small bodies bonking the glass like questions with foreheads. I slept afternoons on the office couch with the sound of fans turning air into weather. Maya joined my nights with a toolbox and a shoulder the world had tried and failed to make small. Integrated Pest Management Lead, IPM in our private algebra. She shepherded beneficial insects like saints and hunted bad actors with judgment and mercy. She wore steel-toe boots and a braid that looked like rigging. She could make a hose kneel, and a man remember his posture with the same gesture. "Which of your children is lying?" she asked, not looking at me, her attention tilted toward the bromeliad wall. "The Guzmanias," I said. "They're drinking like heartbreak." "They want to be wanted," she said, approving, and adjusted the drippers with a tenderness that filed itself under faith. We began with verbs that do not bruise. She taught me which leaves confess spider mites in a scatter of salt and which will lie until you ask them with a flashlight and patience. I taught her the exact purr a fan gives the night before it forgets its job. She left half an orange on my tray. I slid the peel into my pocket so my day could smell like a better mood. At 2:03, when the rainforest dome hits its monastery note, we stood shoulder to shoulder and listened to the room believe us. The first time she touched me, it was my wrist, 1 degree, so my watchband wouldn't nick a tender stem as I tied a string that taught a vine charity. "There," she murmured, and heat went inventorying my bones like a careful clerk. We are not children. Speed is fear in a borrowed dress. The first time we kissed, it was under the walkway where the palms bend down to introduce themselves, out of the camera's gossip. Her mouth tasted of orange and coffee and the warm place that should be reserved for courage and love. She kept her eyes open for a beat, not to check for lenses. I had bullied the angles of everything that matters, just to choose me twice. My hand found the small of her back where a day stores its opinion. She made a sound I put in my pocket for famine. We counted to 10 and used 9. The last second belongs to the greenhouse. We wrote rules that felt like respect, not fences. No hands on visitor rails where fingerprints become rumors. No mouths near open potting mix. Spores live by their own rules and deserve boundaries. Yes to the service corridor that smells of hose and apology. Yes to the bench with the task lamp off, her knee pressed to mine under a maintenance log that had started to learn gentler nouns. Yes to the cold room, which teaches skin humility. We kept our fingers off master keys, like people who have handled fire. Autumn taught the donors to love velvet again, which meant the gala returned to pretend it invented generosity. Night Garden, someone named it, because copywriters hang lights on anything. Sophia came in a dress that taught glass how to stare. Thea drifted behind with a smile that trusted cameras. We nodded like grown-ups who refuse to make a building carry what mouths can carry. Maya wore black because glue hides there, and moved a cart of linens and nematode cultures through the party like a small weather event that made everything cleaner. From the dais, somebody misused legacy until it came unstitched. Someone else said alchemy and the trumpet obliged. I did my rounds because habit is my quiet god. The north door didn't pause for a body trying to teach it choreography. The bromeliad camera watched like a dog that had chosen a new master. The hygrostat needle sat at an angle my hand recognized like handwriting. On my bench, the blue tin clicked under my thumb. Inside, a clear hair tie, a bobby pin bent into a question mark, the corner of a glittered wristband, a paper with a dried plum smile. Not trophies. Grammar. Quotation marks around a chapter I had filed and refused to audition again. After breakdown, when Mint finally lost its case for being a personality, and the last donor remembered that coats exist, Maya found me by the ficus that believes it is a cathedral and put her palm flat against a leaf as if chlorophyll might teach her manners and approval. A crescent of wax glowed on her wrist where warmth lives. "You look like you forgot to take yourself with you," she said. "I'm practicing staying," I told her. "As what?" she asked, soft because she is. "As a guest," I said, and the word felt like a bench that forgave knees. We took the iron stair to the roof because roofs don't gossip. The city smelled of rain with plans. The glass glowed below us like a lantern full of serious opinions. She pressed me against the parapet with the competence of someone who has measured a fall and told gravity to mind its manners. We kissed like people who respect risk and pay their bills. My belt kissed stone and we both laughed, because slapstick belongs to the liturgy of rooms that have already saved us. We stopped before the moon learned our names. There is a version where I weaponize horticulture. I stitch together door holds, camera sneezes, and fluorescent fingerprints into a little film, and show it on a loop during the silent auction while the quartet pretends not to listen. That version ends with a conservatory that stops telling me the truth. I walked two bodies out of a door. I kept a sanctuary from being humiliated. I chose smaller verbs and learned they outlast knives. Winter taught the boilers humility and taught me patience. The new volunteer learned the difference between secrecy and discretion. One is a hobby that wants applause, the other a gift. A pop star arrived for a private midnight tour and tried to kiss the corpse flower. We saved her with humor and hand sanitizer. Maya taught me that hoses obey torque, not threats, and that I go quiet 3 breaths before my temper remembers its mouth. I taught her the shy, proud sigh a monster gives the night before it admits the new leaf will split, and how to nap upright on a potting stool without waking furious at your spine. One Thursday, the north door chirped to be held and nobody obliged. The bromeliad camera admired the tunnel with the calm of an animal at peace. The hygrostat needle sat in its odd angle like an elderly aunt who refuses to straighten her hat for anyone. I laughed into my sleeve. Maya laughed into my collarbone. The dome pretended not to approve and gave us ordinary air. If you wander the reed in a moment it denies exists, and a voice tells you to keep your hands off the leaves because fingerprints are forever. That's me pretending I am only talking about plants. If you see a woman in black rest her cheek against a smooth leaf for one counted second like prayer, that's Maya telling the room we're its students. You won't see the UV lamp unless the walls ask for ghosts, and there isn't a kinder way. You won't see the blue tin unless you already know why punctuation saves lives. I lock the staff door and feel the burr under my thumb where 100 stories taught the steel to be honest. I dim the lights in the order the rooms prefer, so darkness arrives like a language the plants remember. The fans sigh their last consent. Maya steals my final clean minute because she can. I let her because that rule outlived the rest. Tip the night. We walk the service corridor with our hands in each other's pockets like we invented warmth. The city outside eats its reflection. Under glass, the living decide to trust us until morning. Greenhouses make their own weather. They forgive slowly and then all at once when you stop making them host scenes they didn't audition for. We don't have 10 anymore. We keep the minutes we can carry and leave the rest hanging in the air where mist keeps them bright. In the morning, a stranger will press a nose against the glass and believe, for a breath, that something invisible loves him back. I will try to be as careful with the living. The blue tin in my drawer will click shut like a sentence that refuses to be a period. A semicolon, 2 clauses joined by a breath the leaves taught me to take.